Forge FC is ready for their upcoming match.
Simply stunning stuff. And finally, their goal. My word, what a rocket.
Now, let's get you up to date with Anthony Urciuoli and Match Day Preview on the Forge Audio Network.
Hey there, Forge fans. Anthony Urciuoli with you. It's the Forge Audio Network. This is the Match Day Preview. We're down to the wire here. Not a whole ton of Match Day previews remaining, especially in the regular season. The second to last regular season matchup for Forge FC at home, the first of 2 matches in 5 days as part of 3 matches in 9 days. Busy week for Forge. They take on Pacific FC, and Forge still have their eyes on top spot in the CPL table. Pacific, by the way, also within striking distance of top spot. Certainly they're playing for seeding as they are one of the 4 clubs along with Forge. We're at a jockeying stage right now for position. You have Atletico in first, Forge in second. They're 4 points back with a match in hand. So Forge will need 4 points in the remaining 2 matches, and they'll need Ottawa to lose their finale on the weekend against York. So Forge fans are going to have to be, depending how things play out Wednesday night at home against Pacific, but you may have to cheer for York. You may have to be York fans for one day against Ottawa. But before we get to that, Forge needing to take care of their own business. The other team in that top 4, Cavalry. So, and that's Pacific's last match. They're against Cavalry. So you have these clubs playing each other, all in contention. A lot of movement still possible in this final week of the regular season. Playoffs will start mid-October. Now, this is how it'll play out for Forge FC. If they finish first or second, currently they're in second. If they finish in the top 2, the 2-leg semifinal will begin on the road the weekend of October 15th, and then Forge will play their home match, the second leg of the semifinal, on October 23rd. Okay, so that's the plan if Forge finishes in the top 2. If they don't, if Forge finish 3rd or 4th, they will open at home in the semifinal. That's on October 15th, and the return leg on the road will be on the 23rd. Reminder, no away goals in the aggregate in the Canadian Premier League this season. So away goals, they're not weighted differently than home goals. It is just whoever scores the most goals in 2 matches in a home and away series. And if it is tied after regulation in that second leg, it'll just go straight to sudden death. So this is it, right? We're down to it now. Couple matches remaining in the regular season. Forge very much still hoping to finish in that top spot. We are going to check in and give you the Pacific point of view. Cleve Dheensaw, he's been on the program before. He's going to join us. He covers Pacific. He's a Hall of Fame sports writer out in BC, and he will join us shortly, and we'll get a little more insight into Pacific and what kind of team we're looking at, because the team's gone through some changes this year with key guys in, out of the lineup, transfers, injuries, suspensions, all kinds of movement. But I think this is Pacific is set on this squad to finish the season and to go into the regular season with. So we'll check in with Cleve Dheensaw to get a more of a perspective on Pacific. Before we do that, though, head coach and technical director Bobby Smyrniotis speaking at the pre-match media conference on what he's expecting to see Wednesday night at Tim Hortons Field. 7 o'clock kickoff, by the way. Tickets available now. There's some promotions. We're going to get into all that in a moment, though. But here's Bobby talking about that matchup with Pacific and what he's expecting.
Good performance on the weekend, especially in that second half. So we're happy with that, and we just want to keep that going. It's a part of the season that's important with these 2 games in front of us. Trying to see as many points as we can get playing here at home. I think tomorrow will. Everyone knows that it'll be a tough match against the Pacific team who's been doing relatively well in the last few games. But everyone's ready to go.
Former Pacific forward Terran Campbell also spoke ahead of this match. And let's check in with him. He's facing his former team for the 3rd time now this season. Don't forget, he was part of that Pacific team that won the championship last year at Tim Hortons Field when they beat Forge. Hoja Rapport scoring that game winner. I know most of you tried to block that out, but listen, they're with us now, so we don't have to be worried about them scoring against us. But Campbell is sure looking to score against his former team, depending. We're not sure how the lineups are going to look. We never do until about an hour before kickoff on game day. But here's Terran Campbell, who is facing his former team for a third time this season.
It's definitely a playoff game. I think Pacific is just below us, fighting for second place. It'll be a playoff game tomorrow, and it'll be good to see what they're like just before the postseason, because we could end up playing them. We'll see what happens, but yeah.
Now, we should note as well, Kyle Becker is eligible to return in this match. He's finished serving his 3-match suspension. So Kyle Becker available for this contest against Pacific, and then depending what happens Wednesday night, should be available for the finale as well against Halifax on Sunday. And Forge fans are just hoping that match means something and that Atletico loses on the weekend, or even a draw could help Forge. They'll need more than they'll need 5 points instead of the 4. But either way, as long as Ottawa doesn't win on the weekend and Forge is able to kind of run the table through these final 2 matches. Let's check in now and get some Pacific insight. Cleve Dheensaw, sports writer with the Victoria Times Colonist for 28 years. He's covered Olympics. He's a Hall of Fame. Well, Cleve, we're at it again. We didn't talk too long ago the last time Pacific and Forge played, but here we are. Final week of the season. I believe, is it Pacific's final match on Wednesday night of the regular season?
No, they close out against Cavalry in Calgary on Saturday.
So what kind of, because I know, Forge has their sights set on that top spot in the table. Pacific, do you get the feeling that this is a club that's going to be battling for playoff positioning, or is it a chance to get some guys some minutes? How do you think they're going to approach this week here?
I think it's a bit of both. They still have hopes of they're mathematically still alive if Atletico Ottawa loses their final game and if they win out. That's a tall order because they're playing Forge and Cavalry to close out Victoria is, and so that's a tough ask for them. But obviously, you're shooting for the top, right? Mathematically, they're still alive, and I think there's a bit of a gap between the semifinals. You got time to prepare, so I think they're going to go hard both games. James Merriman said he's looking for first place, and that's the way you have to approach it.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. So Pacific, then, it's been a bit of an up and down season, I guess I would say. If now there's still 2 games remaining, but if the season were to end today, how would you kind of sum up Pacific's year?
A season of waves. They had that great start, and people thought they were going to run away with the league. Then they had that a low swing, and then they came back with a mid-season surge. Then another dip, and now closing off with 4 undefeated and 2 consecutive victories. Mind you, they're against non-playoff teams, but they did what they had to do. You could only face the team in front of you, and they had to beat HFX, and they did. And they had to beat FC Edmonton on the weekend at home in their final home game, and they did that. Put themselves in good position to where a result Sunday would eliminate. Valor, and that's what happened. So, they've done what they've needed to over the last 4 games in a bit of a spurt to the end. So it's been Anthony, a season of ups and downs and a season of streaks and waves for the Tridents.
And you get the feeling that the waves, not just for Pacific, but for all these top 4 clubs, could continue when it gets to playoff time. Obviously you want the seeding, first, second would be nice, but with the way the season's gone, with everyone just beating everyone, and just points have been so tough to come by, that home field is nice, but anything can happen.
Yeah, it seems every 2 or 3 weeks the table had shifted this year, right? Until finally it just, it sort of played out as people thought it might, with the 4 teams that people expected to be in the postseason now officially in, but Valor gave it a good run right to the end, and York and HFX gave some pretty good pretty interesting pushes at the end, but obviously both fell short. Yeah, I'm looking at the playoffs, and this is an intriguing bunch. Everybody's got it's a great storylines all the way through. You got Forge looking to get back on top after, being upset last year by PFC, in the championship game, that they still, want to get back, because it's obviously a sore point with a group that would have loved to have won 3 straight, just to start as a really, memorable start to CPL history. That was denied them. So, that's the Forge storyline, the old champion trying to regain. And of course, PFC, the holders, trying to keep their hold on the North Star Shield and not wanting to let go of it. And of course, Cavalry, always biting around the edges, always knocking on the door, but never opening the door and going through with it, at the end. But obviously, a team that's been the biggest contender of the non-champions over the last 4 years, always there. And of course, the debutant, first time in the postseason for the leaders of the league right now, Ottawa, and what a story they have been from not making the playoffs last year, and neither in the bubble season as well, and now to top of the league possibly. And so all 4 of these teams have really fascinating storylines heading into the postseason. It's going to be a great playoffs.
Yeah, has Pacific settled on a starting lineup? We're seeing a lot of mix. Forged likes to do some rotations and get different guys in. Has Pacific hit a point now where it's like this is our 11 core guys here, and this is who are going to take us to where we?
Yeah, I think he's Merriman is pretty much set on who he wants to see through to the mix, and leading, of course, is the midfield duo of Marco Bustos and Manny Aparicio, and they were front and center that the big victory over FC Edmonton on the weekend in the first minute, and the storyline for Manny Aparicio, 4-game suspension, controversial that 3 game to get to for what he got for the foul that was, and then a game added on just because of a technicality that nobody seemed to be aware of until the last minute. But since his return, all he's done is have 2 magnificent crosses that have led to goals, and against HFX in Halifax after the storm. He left-footed one from the left side to charging Josh Hurd. That was the insurance goal in that game, in that victory. And then, of course, in the first minute again, from the left side, a nice cross in to a charging Bustos who headed it in. So, I mean, his return has been very key for what he does. He's a midfield engine. Manny Aparicio is for PFC, and it used to be Marco Bustos, but now it's Manny Aparicio. And how Manny Aparicio goes in the midfield, so goes PFC.
Do you think, and has the team benefited from the CONCACAF experience this year? I know Forge talks a lot about their CONCACAF experience and what it's done for the club and as a group. The travel and just being in different environments, and it really helps kind of grow a group and kind of create that team element. Has Pacific benefited from their experience?
I think now it has. When you look back on it, I think they're a hardened, better group for having gone through that experience. At the time, they had a really good run through CONCACAF, beating the Jamaican champions in the first round, and then taking, a pretty good, squad from Costa Rica, one of the classic franchises in that league, with 6 players who are on the Ticos going to the World Cup next month in Qatar, right, and taking them right to the limit to shootout. So, but after that, they had a real dip in season, and I think, they found it very tiring and very draining. But now when you look back on it, once that part is gone now, obviously, they're, as far as being tired, has nothing to do with that anymore. That was a couple of months ago. Right. But right afterwards, I think it really affected their season. But now, when you look back on the experience they gained from that, I think they'll be a better club for having gone through that, now heading into the playoffs. Because essentially, once you play in CONCACAF, you've been in playoff experience already. You've been in elimination games already, and Forge and the PFC have, and Atletico and Calgary haven't. So I think that experience for both these clubs is going to be very, very key in the postseason for them, and will hold them in good stead, I think.
It's interesting when you look at the top 4. There's still, to me, it jumps out. Forge, Cavalry, Pacific. For whatever reason, I know they're in first place, but Ottawa doesn't worry me as much as the other 3 are. I don't know if it, maybe the way they've won this year, they play much differently than the other 3 as well, which is interesting with a more defensive style. Have you, not that we're not sold on Ottawa, I'm certainly sold. I mean, they're for real. But do you really see them as kind of the class of the league right now? There's something missing for me.
Well, I think they're interesting in that you're right, because of the big three that over the last 4 years, they're the gate crashers of this Final Four group, right? So it's interesting to view them in that way, just simply because of these four teams, which one hasn't belonged in the past, right? And it's Ottawa that stands out as the as the gate crashers, as it were, and and the outsiders coming in. So I think a lot of people, like observers like us, are probably thinking, yeah, they're maybe the odd man out, even though they're likely to win the league, and take the top seed and host, and they got great crowds there, and they're certainly going to get a big one if they get to the championship game. That'll be a big plus for them. But yeah, I mean, I don't think any of the four are unbeatable. I could, you're going to hold this tournament, this four-team tournament, and you could rehold it again next month, and you're going to get a different result. It's just I can see pluses and minuses for all four of these Final Four teams, and I can see any one of them taking it.
And that's what you want as a neutral, for sure, and just for the betterment of the league with so much parity this season. Cleve, we've talked twice now. There's a good chance. I feel like we're going to talk a third time because
everybody got this hunch that there's another Forge versus a PFC final in the offing, right? And that's what these final few. Would it be at Starlight? Or will it be at Tim Hortons, right? And that's going to be decided over this week. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure anybody's watching from Calgary or Ottawa, thinking, no. It's watch out for our group.
But we wouldn't be surprised if we were speaking again, even if it's a semifinal matchup. The odds.
All matchups are possible at this point, from what I've seen, from the standings. It could, and of course, Anthony, changes this year. It's not a one-off. It's a two-legged series, so that makes it more of a chess match in many, many ways, right? And you got time to actually sit down and analyze how this is going to work out over two games rather than a crapshoot of one game, right? Anything can happen in one game,
right?
But two games
and no away aggregate either, right? So they removed that away aggregate, so that makes things interesting too.
Now, the rest of FIFA has pretty much eliminated it, right? So it'll be very interesting. Yeah. And I'm not sure how the playoffs actually work. I don't know who gets to choose who. I guess the higher seed would choose which game they'd want where, right? Yeah.
I think the way they said it, if I know in Forge's case, if they finish as in first or second, they get the second leg at home. If they finish third or fourth, they get the first leg at home.
You go the second leg at home, obviously, right? Because
should be interesting.
I think that changes the whole dynamic of the playoffs now, because it's now the better team is going to win the playoff series, the semifinals, and there'll be no doubt about it. A one-off, I'm sure Cavalry last year is still stinging from that extra time loss on a really strange goal to PFC, because they thought that was their year, right? And so and I'm pretty sure they had their eye on Tim Hortons field in one way, even in extra time, I think, because they pretty much dominated that game. But in one game, anything goes, right? Yeah. And of course, everybody remembers the goal by Data Luke, right? Very strange one, and hustle goal, and anything can happen on a one-off. In a two-legged series, I think nobody can say that the best team hasn't advanced, right? So.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and again, without the away goals, so it's just a straight up better team between two matches. It'll be exciting. Cleve, thanks so much for doing this. I feel like we'll talk to you again, so I'll leave it out there.
Thanks, Anthony. Yeah.
Okay. All right, take care. All right, quite the tilt on deck here Wednesday night in Hamilton between Forge and Pacific, 7 o'clock. Now, if you're interested in tickets for this match, this is the Women in Sports match. There will also be a Spark Summit. Forge FC very proud of the work they're doing on the front foot of things in terms of, as far as the CPL is concerned, hosting this Spark Summit for women, for business women working in sport. Panels, we've done features on this. If you want to go back and catch our Focus on Forward, we interviewed Jackie Dory with CBC Sports. She's going to be hosting this panel that includes Andy Petrillo, Deidre Dion, who's an Olympic medalist and sports executive, and Taylor McIntyre, who's a football coach at McMaster. So that happens Wednesday night at Tim Hortons Field, taking place at the club level, the Spark Summit ahead of Forge and Pacific. Tickets to this match available, forgefc.ca. You're not going to want to miss this. How could you want to miss this? I'll be there. Hope to see you there. We'll talk to you soon.
Forge FC is prepared, and now you are informed. This has been Match Day Preview with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. Subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.